Wait, did Jackie Christie, the reigning queen of reality chaos, really just collapse in the middle of a federal courtroom after being handed a life sentence, her body crumbling to the floor as if the weight of her secrets finally snapped every bone of her manufactured persona, turning what should have been the climax of a reunion special into the kind of real-life courtroom horror that even VH1 couldn't script? This wasn't some brunch table meltdown over loyalty or lip gloss. This was betrayal at the highest level. Financial treason, wire fraud, laundering millions through fake charities, shell companies, offshore accounts, and influencer scams that promised empowerment but delivered nothing but jet fuel for her private planes. And when the judge struck the gavel and calmly stated, "This court does not entertain dramatics," Jackie fell, not just from her platform, but from grace itself, like a star that had shone too brightly on a lie-slicked stage for too long, her black designer suit a funeral dress for the empire she built on illusion, deceit, and delusion. While gasps filled the gallery, phones hit the floor, and Mona Scott Young allegedly darted out of the room covering her face, as if even she knew this scandal would burn hotter than any reunion ever could, because Jackie hadn't just dipped into fraud, she dove headfirst into it, orchestrating a years-long deception using fake wellness retreats with no therapists, empowerment seminars that funneled donations to shell companies, and even Hollywood Connections, a well-known producer laundering money through fake film projects to cover her trail. All while her fans paid for designer handbags that never shipped, her influencers unknowingly pitched imaginary luxury brands, and her offshore account known as JC Enterprises. Seriously, her own initials? Became the hub of an empire so elaborate that when a $3.29 million flag transaction pinged a Cayman Islands server, the feds were no longer just suspicious, they were building a case, one that now includes a potential celebrity laundering ring involving 3 reality stars, 2 influencers, and 1 eerily silent housewife currently lawyering up. And as Jackie's courtroom collapse went viral, Jackie Falls, one courtroom chaos, memes of her face next to Oscar-winning faint scenes, the world split in half, some laughing, some raging, especially victims who lost thousands to her schemes, while Jackie's own children reportedly stopped speaking to her. Her podcast was pulled, her sponsorships vanished, and the only reunion she was now looking at was with a prison cell, possibly forever, especially if she refuses to cut a deal, though insiders say she's now considering flipping on her powerful allies, including that same Hollywood producer who allegedly paid for her defense to keep her quiet. Because when you build an empire on lies and illusions, it only takes one truth to shatter everything. And Jackie Christie, who once screamed, "I'm the Queen," across countless. But if you thought Jackie Christie's collapse in the courtroom was the end of the story, you've underestimated the depth of this rabbit hole, because what followed wasn't just fallout, it was implosion, a systematic dismantling of everything Jackie touched, from her glittering reality TV persona to the very people who once protected her, loved her, empowered her, and now, one by one, are turning on her to save themselves. Because as the government peeled back the layers of her financial empire, they didn't just find stolen money, they found rot, manipulation, and a carefully constructed web of influence stretching through the entertainment industry, the influencer economy, and the celebrity elite, with emails, voice memos, and offshore banking trails now implicating not just Jackie, but a whole circle of enablers, allies, and opportunists, including that famous Hollywood producer who once championed stories about crime families and now finds himself whispered about in sealed indictments because prosecutors believe Jackie didn't act alone. No, she was part of something bigger, a celebrity-driven laundering ring that used fake product placements, imaginary ad campaigns, and phony media ventures to move money internationally. And now that the jig is up, the feds are circling like vultures, flipping interns, assistants, and friends who suddenly can't wait to cooperate in exchange for immunity. And sources say Jackie, realizing the loyalty she banked on was nothing more than scripted chemistry, is considering the unthinkable, turning state's witness, cutting a deal that would reduce her life sentence in exchange for names, dates, deals, and the receipts that could bring down more than just her. And as this possibility leaks, the panic in Hollywood is electric, with PR teams scrambling, NDAs getting shredded, and formerly unshakable celebrities ghosting her overnight because the brand is now radioactive. The name Jackie Christie synonymous with fraud, betrayal, and the buy. And as the dust settled around Jackie Christie's collapse, her dramatic fall captured in viral clips, meme templates, and screaming headlines, the true reckoning began, not just in the courtroom, but in the court of public opinion, where forgiveness is rare and memory is forever. Because while Jackie's legal team scrambled behind closed doors to negotiate a plea that might shave off years if she agreed to become the government's favorite storyteller, the outside world was erupting in outrage, betrayal, and disbelief as fans, followers, former castmates, and forgotten friends woke up to the reality that they hadn't been watching a misunderstood woman rise. They'd been watching a master manipulator build a glittering empire out of fraud, fear, and fantasy. And now that empire was burning, with brand sponsors cutting ties faster than tweets could be deleted, podcast platforms yanking episodes down, and producers from Basketball Wives allegedly working overtime to erase Jackie's digital footprint, discussing edits, retractions, and PR strategies that might quarantine the damage before it infects the entire franchise. But it's too late, because the scandal is radioactive and spreading fast, with civil suits already rolling in from victims, women who believed in Jackie's empowerment retreats and wired money they didn't have for coaching packages that never arrived. Influencers who sold her fake designer goods under the assumption they were part of something aspirational, only to discover they were pawns in a Ponzi scheme dressed in Balenciaga, and investors who were promised returns from luxury health products and real estate flips that turned out to be as hollow as Jackie's apology statements, because while she sobbed through a court-issued video call telling fans, "I never meant to hurt anyone," the facts were already being carved into legal stone. She moved millions through fake LLCs, bribed a campaign, tampered with a witness, and wired a staggering $4. $8 million to Luxembourg just days before her sentencing. Money that now sits frozen in international limbo while victims struggle to recover their losses, and Jackie's own family, once shown in glossy holiday specials and filtered family portraits, quietly begins to disintegrate under the pressure of public shame. With her daughter deleting social media, her husband reportedly considering separation, and insiders saying Jackie herself has been placed on suicide watch after a week in isolation where she refused to eat, speak, or sign her initial plea documents. But even if she cuts a deal, even if she sings until the walls fall down, what does she return to? Because the industry has turned its back, her fans have turned the page, and Hollywood, so quick to crown her queen when the chaos sold, now wants nothing to do with her crown, her castle, or her collapse. And what remains is a legacy built not on truth, talent, or triumph, but on illusion, deceit, and the belief that she could outplay consequences forever. And in the end, it wasn't a fight with a castmate or a producer edit that ended Jackie Christie. It was Jackie herself, undone by her own ambition, her need to control, to conquer, to consume, until there was nothing left to take except a lifetime sentence and a name that will now forever be synonymous with betrayal. Because in this final chapter of her once-envied reign, there are no reunion specials, no redemptive arcs, no final walk into the sunset, only a hard metal cell, a file thicker than any script, and the reality that this time, reality didn't just bite, it buried her. And now, as the noise begins to fade and the hashtags slowly drift off the trending lists, what remains in the wake of Jackie Christie's spectacular downfall is a chilling, almost surgical silence, the kind of silence that only comes after reputations have been executed and the last gasps of damage control have failed, because the collapse wasn't just personal, it was systemic. An earthquake that cracked the surface of an entire entertainment ecosystem built on curated chaos, staged empowerment, and the dangerous illusion that celebrity equals invincibility. And as federal agents continue to knock on doors, seize assets, and unseal indictments with names no one expected to see, a quiet terror is spreading through the influencer elite and reality show royalty who once laughed at accountability, because if Jackie could be brought down, Jackie, the untouchable, the queen pin, the perennial centerpiece of every reunion special, then no one is safe, and suddenly Instagram timelines are being scrubbed, LLCs are being dissolved, and stylists and assistants are no longer returning texts, as producers now whisper about who else is being watched, whose empowerment brand might be a shell company, whose retreats might have moved funds across borders, and who else might be wearing a mic for the feds just to keep themselves out of prison, while inside